And in this episode, I go over the difference between a Nakiri knife, a Santoku, and a chef's knife. And welcome back to More Approved. If you're joining us for the first time, my name is James and I do stuff. And today, I'm going to be showing you the difference between a Japanese Nakiri knife, a Santoku, and your everyday chef's knife. So let's go over the basic differences between these knives. They're all pretty much the same, they all have the same use, and they're all supposed to be held the same way. I'm going to tell you what I like about them and what I don't like about them, and then I'm also going to tell you which knife I like the best out of all the ones that you see before you. So let's take a quick look at the Nakiri knife itself. We'll go ahead and set these out of the way. The Nakiri knife itself, if you notice, it has a cut off end. So if you were to compare this to, say, that knife right there, it looks like they just chopped the front of the blade right on off. The thing I like about this knife is the handle is ergonomically designed to support good knife cutting habits. So if you take a closer look there, if you see, it sort of tapers in and comes right into this area. And I'm going to show you on this knife a demonstration how to properly hold a chef's knife. With 2 fingers, take your knife and grab it just like that. So hold it just like that. And when you wrap your hand around the blade, your thumb is going to move as well as this finger. And it should look something along those lines. Now, this is the proper way that you hold a knife. At least that's the way that I was taught, and this is the way that I've been cutting for quite some time now. And it gives you a lot of control and takes a lot of play out of what you're cutting. So let's go ahead and demonstrate on, let's say, a potato, for instance. Potatoes are cheap and easy. It's a good way to practice your skills. If you're just getting into this and you're not super comfortable with cutting things, especially holding the knife a new way, you're gonna wanna give yourself a flat side. So you just go ahead, chop off a little piece, make it flat so it's not flopping all over the place. You're gonna wanna have your hands like this. Remember that movie with that, the new kid, the new guy, he's like, tiger claw or tiger paw or whatever it was. Imagine that. And your knife is gonna go up and down against your knuckles. And that's gonna keep you from losing fingertips. Just make sure you're moving your thumb back as you're going across your product. I'm not doing an in-depth of really how to cut, but I just want to make sure that you're not going to cut something off. Now, a Nakiri knife is meant to be like a chopping action up and down, but ideally you want to have a slightly forward motion as you're chopping. So, and you just want to go ahead and do it that way. So that's how you should use a Nakiri knife, and as you can see, worked out pretty good. The knife does have a really great handle. I found that this is a really, really hard steel. So it's like Japanese VG steel core, you know, bonded to stainless steel on the outside, and it makes it really hard to hone this blade and bring it back to a super sharp edge. And I found that the steel is sort of brittle on the tip. So if you're really going at it, getting it too thin and it has a microfracture in it, you'll lose a little chip out of your blade, and that just drives me crazy. So a once in a blue moon knife, I will use this. I do think it looks cool, but it's not an everyday use because it's way too hard to get back to sharp. So the Santoku, I don't know. Whatever this knife is, when they first became like super hot, like, I don't know, it was like early 2000s, I don't know, like 2004, 2005, 2006, something like that. They had some sort of Food Network program, and everybody was like, oh, I just got the set of, you know, whatever knives. I never jumped on that bandwagon. They are cool, they look different than a regular chef's knife, and compared to my culinary school chef's knife, which I do not like, this is a better knife. And let me tell you why. On this particular knife, I don't have the clearance to hold this knife properly and make cuts. So my knuckles touch the board before the blade touches the board, and that's just not conducive for cutting all the way through things. So I don't really use this knife. I had to use it in culinary school. I don't use it at all anymore. And this is not a cheap knife. It has really great clearance to the board. The handle does sort of help you and encourage you to hold the knife properly, which is good. This was really cheap. My wife had picked this up from Aldi's. I think it was like $9 or $8 or $10 or something like that. So I'm actually pretty impressed with it. It's really easy to sharpen and maintain an edge. It feels somewhat comfortable in your hands. I don't really like that style of grip. I think it's just a little bit off for me, but overall, it's a very solid knife and I do like it. And with this knife, this one operates pretty much like the Nakiri. The ideal thing is like a short thrust forward. You can do a rocking motion and cut as well. So all those knives have that in common. You can pretty much use them either way. For the Nakiri and the Santoku knife, they want you to do more of a chopping motion or forward motion as you're cutting. So we'll just go ahead and flip this potato around and cut through it. Now I have noticed with this knife, because of the angle of the blade and where I like to cut with it, I don't always go through. So that's another thing I don't really like about that style of it. I don't know if they're all like that. It is a pretty decent one, but it does work better if you're doing the rocking motion. So the next knife we're going to take a look at is a regular chef's knife. There's a lot of different styles of chef's knife, from old school to new school, the whole shebang. There's a whole bunch of different manufacturers for these. I like the knives that have a wider back on them. So it has more space from here down to the blade, and it just makes me feel more comfortable. I have more control over it. Whereas with this one, it's really short. Again, my knuckles tend to make contact with the board as I'm trying to cut things, which slows me down and makes me second guess what I'm doing. And I'm always worried that I'm going to cut myself when I use something for this. So you have to make sure that you're comfortable with the size of the blade that you use. This is a pretty expensive knife. Price for what you get, I don't think this is the best knife. The knife that I really like, this I picked up from Sam's Club. This was a 2-pack, and I think it was a 2-pack for like 13 bucks. You got an 8-inch chef's knife and you got a 10-inch chef's knife. The 10-inch chef's knife I actually chopped down a tree with and messed up the blade, but it was really cheap. It was like a $6 knife, and I didn't want the tree to fall on my house, so before it got too big, yeah, I used a chef's knife for that. That is an improper way to use a chef's knife, for the record, but they're really strong, they're really durable. I like the way the handle fits my hand. I really like how it's formed. It keeps your fingers up on the blade where they're supposed to be, and you know, it just feels comfortable for me. And again, it's a really easy blade to maintain and sharpen and resharpen and keep sharp with very little effort. The best knives that you're gonna have, regardless of what brand you're looking for, you're gonna want it to be a high carbon blade that is stain resistant. Those are gonna be the best ones. That's what they use throughout the industry. There aren't too many kitchens that are going out there spending $500 on this, you know, cut through, you know, a tree stump knife, even though I technically did cut through a tree with one of these knives. But this was like a $6 knife on its own, or a $7 knife on its own. Really cheap, great value. In restaurants, a lot of times they'll use Dexter. I'll leave a link down below for all the stuff you see here. You're not gonna be able to see the Aldi's knife down below, but I will leave a link to the Calphalon knife because it is a pretty cool looking knife, just very hard to maintain. And I will leave a link to the knife that I got in culinary school, and I'll leave a knife to the Dexter knives, which are pretty much like this. I really do like Dexter, and every restaurant that I've worked in, they've used Dexters. And I'll give you a little demonstration of how this knife should be used. Again, you're gonna wanna give yourself a flat surface to work with. You're gonna wanna rock this blade from tip to handle as you're going across. So you're pretty much gonna wanna do that, and you're just gonna repeat. You can also do chopping motions with these, it's not a problem. It's an ugly looking potato, but whatever, this is for demonstrative purposes. We'll just move this out of the way. But again, it's a really easy blade to sharpen. It's very, very sharp, and I like it all around. This one is dishwasher safe. You'll notice some like weird coloration on the blade if water sits on it. So it just looks like water spots, and they are difficult to remove, but that will happen with any of these knives. This knife is not dishwasher safe. It has gotten run through a little bit, but these handles will crack and break off. So the handles for some of these things, you really have to look. They may not be dishwasher safe. This is NSF approved. This is dishwasher safe, the whole shebang. Easy to sharpen, very, very cheap. It comes in a 2-pack, so it has a smaller knife like this, and it also has one that's like that. It's a pretty intense knife, and I really did like that knife. I'll probably pick up another 2-pack here pretty soon. But if you don't have a Sam's Club that's close to you, I will leave a link for Dexter Knives down below in the description box to Amazon. They're pretty much the equivalent. They're gonna look very, very similar to this. They're gonna have the same type of quality to it, and they're very easy to maintain. They are dishwasher safe, they're NSF approved, the whole shebang. And I do like the Dexters in addition to this knife, so I'll leave you a link down below for that. I'll also leave you a link for the Calphalon Nakiri Knife. Again, this knife does encourage proper knife holding technique, but it's really hard to maintain. It'll hold that initial edge for quite a long time because it is very, very hard steel, but it is going to be a lot more difficult to sharpen than the high carbon stain resistant knives. So again, the cheapest knife here is my favorite knife, or the Dexters. They're pretty equivalent. The Dexters are a little bit more expensive, but still a very quality knife. I'll leave all that information down below. So be very safe. Thank you for watching. Leave some comments down below. Give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down, ring the little bell, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and signing off for more Approved, I'm James. Till next time, see you then.